Crazy Caller Rogers. Last question for now. I've answered so freaking many. What do I think is the worst part about modern martial arts and what martial arts has become? I consider that two questions, but that's okay. The worst part about modern martial arts is that, to me, most modern martial arts are either heavily based on realism or sports. Now, some of you might be wondering, well, what the hell is the problem with that? Let me explain. I'm really good at long-winded explanations, aren't I?
Yeah.
When the whole thing about realistic martial arts, okay, I will admit I tend to lean more toward martial artists who are about practical combat applications of their art rather than the touchy-feely hippie type person who does forms and has no freaking clue what the hell the forms are for. Alright, I've always, especially when I took on formal actual instruction. Ismail Williams, if you're out there, I still appreciate everything you taught me. Seriously, ever since formal instruction, I've always been, you know, focused towards just straight up combat. But there was still a little bit of a spiritual side of things and a theoretical side of things. You're supposed to constantly develop your art, and you were supposed to think about your art and come up with new ways of doing it, new ways of moving your body and developing it more. But I've noticed people in the so-called hardcore street realism type stuff. It's not necessarily an art, it's now just a method. And once it just simply becomes this very black and white mechanical method, it's not necessarily an art anymore, is it? I mean, yes, a good combat method, you can probably knock several dudes out with it, but you're now saying that this is, I've noticed another thing about certain realistic martial art types. Once they develop that system, that's it. There's no extra development. It's just like, okay, we've come up with this way to blast a guy in the face, and that's the way that works, and that's it. You're not going to think to yourself, what else can I do with this? You know? It's just like, okay, dudes come at you, bam, and then you just take them, bam, and then it's like, that's how it works, and you do that shit. And yeah, it may work, but the thing I like about, let's say, Chinese martial arts is, say, okay, you might have a motion in your form that comes off like that. Now, you might be thinking, okay, what the hell was that? You have no freaking clue what that was. Well, this could be, okay, I got grabbed, I twist off, ward off, and then I grab the arm up, and then I snap into the face. But this, instead of being a defense against a grab, could be a deflection into a grab. See? Into the grab, and then toss off, and then you grab here, and then this could be a smash down on the arm. It's still the same motion, just adapted differently. Or this could be as you're sidestepping, and then you come off like that and ward off the arm and then strike to the back of the neck and then follow through with the back fist. Same motion, different application. See what I mean? And you're constantly developing, and sometimes the guy might say, well, I'd have to do it this way. I could probably do it this way and switch over to that side, you know? Or, it's just, there's so many different ways of applying palm movements in different applications depending on how you step and go. And it's the constant thinking of all that, you know, just thinking about how to move this way and move that way, you know, twist this, and wait a minute, that probably doesn't work if this guy's bigger than me, so how can I modify? It's that sort of thought that to me makes it more of an art than a method when you start thinking, and especially when you start thinking about how you can make it work. Because it's one thing to be shown a method, this one-size-fit-all method, but then it's another thing to think, well, that's nice, but you know, I'm 5'7" going up against a 6 foot, 200-pound guy. I need to find a different way to do it. And to me, martial arts, traditional martial arts, unless they've gotten too traditional and rigid, and I'm against that too, but if it's the more expressive types, and a lot of them are, then you have to think, oh, how am I going to make this work for me? What technique works for me? And how can I develop it further and come up with new techniques? That's what I think is kind of missing in some of the realistic stuff. The sports stuff is unrealistic, believe it or not. This is what I mean. I love mixed martial arts. I love seeing it in action. I love their philosophy. I love how they've taken the art of bum rushing somebody. Well, alright, I just messed up my statement. So I love how they've taken the act of bum rushing someone and turned that into an art. just suddenly drop, bam, you tie them up. It's awesome to watch. But when they start telling me bullshit that every fight goes to the ground, I think back to my childhood. I haven't been in that many fights, mind you. Not many at all. I can count the amount of fights I've ever been in my life in one hand. Only one ever made it to the ground. And at the time it was because I didn't know what the hell I was doing. That whole thing about every fight goes to the ground just always irked me. Even when I first heard it, I'm like, no, not every fight needs to go to the ground. If you're a martial artist who trains in mid-range, long-range moves or whatever, you're not necessarily trained in grappling. Yeah, you might be at a disadvantage against a guy who really knows how to grapple, but then again, if you keep the guy from being able to use his grapple tools, then he can't exactly work well, can he? And if he doesn't know how to fight without grappling, you win! People don't seem to employ logic here. Grapple-type people who are very egotistical like reversing that argument. They go, because you don't know how to grapple, I can take you down. But they don't seem to realize the argument can work the other way. Because you don't know how to fight outside, I can win. Can I? Why does it only work for you? Another problem I have with everyone telling me that mixed martial arts is the ultimate style of fighting. It's great in the ring. With rules. Now granted, out of all the sport-oriented martial arts I've seen, I think mixed martial arts is probably the most realistic if you're comparing it to the other ones, as far as the rules go, as far as the techniques you can do and things like that. But, you know, you're still fighting in a caged area with no extra weapons around, and you're still limited to what you can actually do. I know if somebody was quickly grabbing me and throwing me to the ground, one of the first things I'm going to do is jab the motherfucker in the eyes or try to break his fingers to keep him from putting me in those locks. In fact, the last time I ever sparred with somebody who tried to use ground take techniques, he found himself almost having his neck broken. I couldn't do that if I was in a mixed martial arts arena type thing. Now, by the way, I'm not saying these things to make myself look big. You know, there's plenty of martial artists out there. There's probably a martial artist watching this right now who could kick my ass. I'm not trying to make myself look big. I'm just simply saying that once you start saying, well, okay, we're making this realistic type fighting skill, but you can't do this, you can't do this, you can't. Now you're putting in rules. That kind of ends the realism. And from what I've seen with certain, whenever you have a certain type of sport that has certain rules that dictate how you're supposed to go, you're going to end up coming up with strategies that sort of lean toward fighting a certain way in order to win. It doesn't necessarily reflect how a fight could actually go in real life if no rules were allowed. I mean, honestly, if I'm in like an environment like this right now and somebody's coming after me, one of the first things I'm going to do is grab this and come after them. I can't do that in a mixed martial arts arena. Likewise, if I'm in the middle of the street and somebody's immediately trying to go low towards me, I'm going to quickly step back and try to use my long range stuff. And if I notice that he's still trying to be close, I'm going to go for vital areas. I'm going to go for the throat. I'm going to go for the eyes. I'm going to go try to go for the ears. I'm going to do shit that's going to get me disqualified from a mixed martial arts fight. And I'm not talking about these special deadly chi techniques. No, I'm talking about simple shit like, just ripping a throat out. I'm not talking about the secret deadly techniques. Please. Anybody can, somebody's coming towards them, just chop them in the back of the fucking head. It's just, it's nothing secret or deadly. I'm just simply talking about use all your tools. And now I'm not saying this, I'm not trying to say mixed martial arts suck. I'm not saying modern martial arts suck. I'm just saying these are the critiques I have against them. That's all. And as far as what they've become, I'm kind of sad to say that martial arts has become mostly entertainment.